All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about integrating RPA with Salesforce. Salesforce, as we all know, is a very popular case management / CRM system, and we're going to see how to leverage your investments in Salesforce by leveraging RPA. So I'm Thakar, Chief Automation Architect with Accelerate, and I'm happy to co-host this webinar with two experts on this very important subject. My first co-host is Peter Villeroy from UiPath. Peter works in the public sector division of UiPath. He is the resident Salesforce, SAP, and Oracle expert. Hi, Peter.
Hello, Harsh. Thanks for having me.
And my other co-host is Ashish Jhade from Accelirate. He's one of our senior automation architects and has been working in the education industry for the last couple of years. He has been leading one of our engagements where Salesforce plays a very important role. Hi, Ashish.
Hi, Harsh. Thank you for having me.
So, Peter, let's get started. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Harsh, and thanks for having me today. So I'm delighted to be here and represent UiPath and kick off this conversation in the webinar a little bit by delving into a native integration that UiPath has released over the last year to help accelerate the amount of automation and the flexibility and scalability of what can be done in the Salesforce platform. Now, we all know that RPA exists in order to reduce the manual effort in the various applications that people are interacting with at work, and classically interacts on the user interface of those applications the same way that a human would. But to bring more flexibility, to bring more scalability, and especially to bring more quickness of delivery to our customers and partner ecosystem, UiPath has developed a number of native integrations with leading software platforms out there, not least of which Salesforce, which is one of our close technical partners. So I want to talk at the beginning of this webinar about how we integrate with Salesforce at UiPath, what that means from a use case perspective, and also from a usability perspective of the platform. So in short and in a nutshell, we have between UiPath and Salesforce a bidirectional native integration, which means that the UiPath platform and the Salesforce platform can talk to each other on a native API level rather than just using the UI. Now, what does that mean bidirectionally? So on the right-hand side of this slide, we have portrayed UiPath robots integrating with Salesforce in that direction. So in short, that means that the robots can access Salesforce on an API level in order to manipulate or create records or files, or to execute reports. And in the other direction, we've allowed the Salesforce platform to natively integrate into UiPath. So you can configure Salesforce to trigger execution of robotic process automation jobs in UiPath, given events that occur within Salesforce. And here I'm going to delve into each of those directions in detail and show you what it looks like. But I wanted at a high level to point out that the two key goals of this kind of interaction are, first and foremost, quickness to delivery. I think it's well known that RPA is one of the fastest to implement technologies in the IT space, and we achieve lightning quick ROI with our customers, and we are looking to always provide the kind of features that allow for that implementation to be faster than the norm, right? And for things like Salesforce, where a large portion of our customer base uses it. A large portion of our partners have expertise with that platform. It makes a lot of sense for us to build these native integrations and to make them drag and drop single activities for executing these API-based tasks in those platforms. And then the second thing is scalability. So when you have a system like Salesforce and you automate a task that you maybe want to scale out to 50 or 100 robots to perform in parallel, using the UI can be a burden to that. Not necessarily because a cloud-based system like Salesforce couldn't handle the load, it certainly can, but you can get more done with your robots in shorter time when you use native integrations rather than the UI, if you're comfortable doing so, or if you're working with a partner that's comfortable doing so, like Accelirate, of course. So this is what that native integration looks like on a on the UiPath side. So we have developed the activity pack for Salesforce, which includes a number of custom activities specifically for interacting with the Salesforce via the API level. So the first activity being an application scope, right, which allows for a secure connection to your Salesforce instance and opens that communication channel for a robot to interact with Salesforce via the API. And then we have activities that your UiPath RPA developers will find in their activity panel as of October last year. Activities for creating records, updating existing records, pulling information out of existing records, of course, deleting records or making composite requests to Salesforce. And then the same with interacting with files, so uploading files, downloading files, assigning files to records. We also have the ability, of course, to execute reports and pull the output of that report as a data table into the robot's working memory, or if you're comfortable doing so, executing custom written SOQL queries. Now, I think at this point, it's interesting to point out that I'm not only referring to the CRM capabilities in Salesforce Sales Cloud, but also the service request or ticketing capabilities in the Service Cloud, right? So a record here is a deliberately vague term that we're using because that record could either be an opportunity or an account or a contact in Sales Cloud, but could also as easily be an incident or a service request in Service Cloud. And it continues even to Health Cloud. So the main point here being, of course, that through the delivery of the UiPath Activity Pack for Salesforce, which is included in Studio out of the box at no extra cost, your RPA developers have access to these activities that they can drag and drop into their workflows and interact with Salesforce via native APIs with the robots. So how does it look on the other side? This is also an equally important feature that we've released also at the end of last year, which is the UiPath connector for Salesforce, which is an app on Salesforce's own App Exchange, which you can install as a Salesforce customer. And the UiPath connector allows you to drag a template into a Salesforce process builder flow that triggers a UiPath robot execution or fills a queue item into a UiPath orchestrator queue, which can be monitored by robots, etc. So the idea behind this one is that it allows you to make UiPath automation an integral part into what you're doing in your Salesforce process builder. And I want to show maybe an example of that here for a minute so everyone gets a good feel for what exactly that looks like. So in an example use case where you have Salesforce and a third-party ERP system where you want to do some integration between the two of them, consider, if you will, a sales rep going into their sales mode, and they have an opportunity that they want to close as having been won, and instead of manually going to an ERP system like SAP, for example, to create a sales order, they would like that to be done by RPA in an automated fashion. So in order to implement this use case, you could drag the UiPath connector for Salesforce into a process flow in the Salesforce cloud that reacts to the event of opportunities being closed won. And that could trigger a job in UiPath's orchestrator to execute a UiPath robot to collect information about the opportunity that was just won, create a sales order accordingly in the SAP environment, and then return to Salesforce and update that opportunity with information about the order. And I'd like to show you what it looks like a little bit in Salesforce itself. So here is a view of the process builder in Salesforce, where you have a flow that is monitoring opportunities to be closed and have their status changed to close won. And here on this box in the middle, the immediate action references the template to a UiPath connector for Salesforce. And you'll see as the engineer clicks on it here, the opportunity, the account ID and the opportunity ID are handed as parameters to the orchestrator job. Right, so that makes this flexible. It can react to any opportunity that's closed, obviously. And then on the UiPath side, you'll see here some of the activities that I mentioned in the overview: an activity for the Salesforce application scope, an activity for collecting records, later an activity for updating records, and of course, and even a custom SOQL query to get the line items out of the record, which in this case is an opportunity of sale. And then in between, naturally, a number of activities for creating a sales order in SAP. Incidentally, we also have a native integration with SAP, so that will be done in the background during this demo as well. So now let's skip ahead and look at the opportunity here. You'll see we've got an opportunity in Salesforce. It's currently in negotiation, hasn't been closed yet, and it's for the sale of 2 diesel generators of different wattages. So if a salesperson comes in here and changes the opportunity details to close won, first, of course, we'll want to note that there's no order number here. So if the salesperson comes in and changes that opportunity to close won, we'll not see anything, which is a little bit different from your average RPA demo because this one runs completely in the background. But what is happening is that the robot is triggered automatically by the Salesforce platform. The robot creates a sales order in SAP. For demo purposes, we have that robot produce a message box to the engineer so that we know that it's completed. And then the opportunity in Salesforce is updated to show the completion of the robot. So we'll see here now a sales order number, which is the one created in SAP automatically by the robot in the background, and a link is added to the Salesforce opportunity page. A link, of course, linking to that sales order in the ERP system in case that needs to be referenced by the salesperson later. Obviously, we have, because of our integration with Salesforce, we would also have the opportunity to extract a sales order document from SAP, for example, and attach that document into the file attachments of the opportunity, or the sky's the limit. Really, the beauty of RPA is its flexibility to attach into your business's own needs, whatever they may be. So I hope that that was a nice overview, at least from a theoretical side, of what the capabilities are between UiPath and Salesforce. And I'd like to hand it over to Ashish next from Accelirate to talk about a more specific use case that they have implemented. Ashish?
Thank you, Peter. So one of the business use case we have integrated UiPath with Salesforce is to process and upload the document submissions from Salesforce into legacy system. The manual process is to monitor the queues for document submissions with multiple attachments from users. The processors download, read, rotate, crop, and convert various file types and multiple attachments into a single PDF document and upload them into a legacy system. The processors also retrieve the document information and manually copy paste the data from one system to another system. This process takes around 4 minutes per submission and worked by hundreds of processors. The processing of these documents is critical to application approval, and the current challenges with manual process are high volumes in peak periods, processing backlogs due to limited personal availability, processing is limited to business hours, manual processing is prone to errors. Accelirate team has developed an automated solution to handle the repetitive tasks to facilitate faster document processing by retrieving, formatting, uploading the documents to the legacy system. This solution also reads the electronic documents that are generated by the DocuSign and perform data entry in legacy system. In next slide, we will see the solution that we have implemented. Peter, can we go to the next slide, please? So the solution we have implemented is bot continuously checks the live report in Salesforce for the document submitted, retrieves the report using UiPath Salesforce activities, and adds them to the bot's working table. For each document object or a record, bot sets the status to in progress using Salesforce, UiPath Salesforce activities. The bot downloads the attachment in order received. And for e-sign documents, the bot merges the signed envelope and certificate using UiPath PDF activities, extract the document information from the DocuSign server, uploads the document, and updates the information in the legacy system. Interestingly, for the images and other file format, the bot formats the attachments using a custom-built machine learning model like rotating and cropping, merges all the attachments as a single PDF using UiPath PDF activities, uploads the formatted documents for human approval using the UI in the legacy system. So this is the bot solution. Peter, can we go to the next slide, please? And the impacts of this solution. The Accelerate team has also created live dashboards in Kibana to monitor the volume and the bot performance. The reports and dashboards are created in Salesforce based on the fields bot updated to track success and escalated document objects for business users. Accelerate's automated tasks run 24/7 to facilitate real-time document processing and equip the document processors to focus on validating the incoming documents. The benefits of RPA integration with Salesforce are seamless integration of UiPath with Salesforce, improvement in processing speeds, faster RPA development compared to system integrations. When we started this use case, we had no API access. We had to do a UI where bot used to take around 3 minutes to process one document. And then we implemented the Salesforce, UiPath Salesforce activities. The speed of the bot has come down around 40 to 80 seconds. The gains realized by this automation are we are able to save 12,000 plus manual hours, and we brought the processing to 24/7 instead of limited to business hours. With reduction in the repetitive tasks for better productivity of the workforce, reduction in the error rate. Thank you, Peter. I'll hand off to Harsh.
Yeah, Ashish, thank you. So Ashish, one question I had was, we obviously started this engagement like in a couple of years ago, right? And at that time, the integration between Salesforce and UiPath was quite primitive. Now that the integrations that Peter just demonstrated, had that been there for you, how much time to market would you have saved?
We can say at least by a month, because the UI automation that we have done, we have to go to multiple screens, and for example, we had to do a 3-screen action to get into an attachment. With the UiPath Salesforce activities, we were just able to use one activity to get that. And it also testing also requires a lot of attention over there in the UI automation, but these activities made easier and reduced the development timeline by at least 1 month.
Okay, that's great. Folks, if you would like to get your questions answered, feel free to put your question in the question box there, and I'll be happy to answer. Peter, the two-way Salesforce integration is really interesting, right? Usually we think of RPA as a unidirectional pattern of implementation. Can you talk to us more about what brought you into what made UiPath do the complete the loop, and some use case examples of where this would be useful?
Yeah, absolutely. So unidirectional integration is sort of the easy one, right? It's a UiPath centric kind of view of the world. We want our robots to be able to natively interact with other applications. It's the obvious one. But the bidirectional integration is actually a more a more holistic approach to integrating with a strategic partner. And I think it takes a certain amount of humility to view the business processes of our customer as not as UiPath centric, but as customer centric. And many of those processes, you realize when you take that view of things, those processes are originating in systems where we don't necessarily have robots originating them, right? So in the example that I gave in the demo, you have human activity in Salesforce, and that's really the trigger for a process that should be automated, right? So by integrating and creating an app in the Salesforce's own platform, we've offered the ability for processes that originate from other systems to integrate into a UiPath digital workforce model. And it makes it really powerful. So a customer of ours here in the US that used the UiPath connector for Salesforce, they pointed out that they had a project already completed that involved robots regularly checking the Salesforce environment for updates to opportunities. And this checking robot would run maybe 5 times a day, and any of the changes that were found were sort of executed in batch. Well, they were one of our first customers for this specific integration feature, and they ended up taking and altering that project so that instead of being up to 4 hours of delay for processing of any changes in the Salesforce environment, it was suddenly an online instant triggering of their processing robot given the event in Salesforce. So that's an example from the Sales Cloud environment. And then from a Service Cloud environment, you could imagine very easily a number of service requests or incidents tickets where an immediate trigger of a UiPath robot could be desirable. Consider a robot that you may have implemented to do a triage of a new incident. Obviously, you want that robot to trigger immediately upon the creation of an incident of a certain category, and the bidirectional integration we have there gives you that ability.
That's awesome, thanks. Now, there's a question for Ashish. In the case study that you discussed, what was the timeline of development, and what are the best practices that you can point to?
The development timeline was around 5 weeks for this process, 5 weeks for this process, and we were pretty much done with the development around 3 weeks, but it took us testing and the setup for rest of the time. And the best practices we followed while this development is making sure that important thing in Salesforce is the session ID. We have to make sure that we are appropriately handling this session while we are doing these activities. And another best practice is making sure the data formatting. We have to make sure in our testing phases the data we are getting is we anticipate, and I think those were the big things we have seen there.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for, oh, we have one last question just came in. I think this question is for you, Peter. Is there any UiPath Salesforce integration to get the Salesforce report data through an activity?
Yes, there is. So executing a report is one of the activities that is included in the Salesforce activity pack. So if you open your studio, open the package manager and search for Salesforce, you'll find the Salesforce activity pack in any recent version of our studio. And one of the activities in that is report. You can execute a report by name. It's as simple as that. You type in the name of the report into the activity, it will be executed, and the output parameter in that activity is a data table, I believe, which will hold the output of the report when it's executed. So you don't have to use a robot to log in. You don't have to navigate to the report section, find your report in maybe a huge list of reports. So just executing the report by name is as easy as a single drag and drop now, thanks to the activity pack.
Thanks, Peter. I guess this is it. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll be sharing a recording of this webinar to everybody who attended. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Peter as well as Ashish and myself, and we would be happy to answer. Thank you and have a nice day.